Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse, talk about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. So, remember when I was lamenting last week that the expected chaos after the collapse of a long-running #1 hit just didn't seem to happen? Turns out I should have waited one more week because we might have one of the busiest weeks in the Hot 100 I've seen in a long time. Massive gains, sizable losses and dropouts, a slew of new and returning tracks, and even new entries to the top 10 that show that even if the #1 slot might be safe for now, everything beneath it sure as hell isn't. And in some cases, that instability might end up being a good thing. But enough wasting time, we'll get to that issue. We need to talk about our top 10. Unsurprisingly, See You Again by Wiz Khalifa featuring Charlie Puth has a stranglehold on the #1, with massive airplay gains compensating for gently slowing sales and still dominant across streaming and YouTube as of now. Unless something absolutely huge is coming to unseat it, and really right now, depending if the sales or streaming collapse quickly than more than you would expect, that could happen, it's still got enough dominance and longevity to stick around. So let's take a look at its nearest competition, a song I never thought would be a huge hit, rising to #2, Trap Queen by Fetty Wap. A virtual non-presence on YouTube, sure, but with solid enough sales, still gaining an airplay, and an absolutely monstrous streaming. It's far enough back in multiple categories that I doubt it'll go to #1 unless you have a severe collapse, but you never know. What's notable is that it shoved back Uptown Funk by Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars to #3, which has respectable enough sales, but airplay was in free fall this week, and streaming was significantly weaker too. Behind it, even despite ruling on radio airplay, is Earned It by The Weeknd at #4, but it's not incredibly strong in streaming, it did not have a good sales week, and even that radio airplay seems like it might have started to peak. Beneath that, cracking the top 5 and putting a huge smile on my face, Shut Up and Dance by Walk the Moon. And really, it's getting there on sales and airplay gains at this point. Not quite there yet in streaming, but it is getting stronger despite being a non-presence on YouTube, which is a welcome sign. Beneath it is Sugar by Maroon 5 slipping to #6, which I would say basically took body blows this entire week in sales and streaming, but it actually seemed to get a bit of a second wind, actually getting a day of airplay gains, and it rose on YouTube this week. Not enough to be really substantial, was still losing by the end of the week, but still interesting. It managed to hold on in that position. Certainly more interesting than Love Me Like You Do by Ellie Goulding falling to #7, because it had lousy sales, took hits on airplay, even despite some of its inertia there, and really is holding on to its position where it is now thanks to streaming. It'll be interesting to see if it can hold up against Want to Want Me by Jason Derulo, rising up 2 slots to #8. Not a great song by any stretch, as I've said in the past, but it had gains in all the categories, and it was only really because airplay hasn't yet caught up to yet where it is. This takes us to the one new arrival in the Hot 100, and the one I can't actually believe is actually here. Nasty Freestyle by T-Wayne. And okay, seriously America, you made this a top 10 hit? You are all aware that T.I. dropped a record, Paperwork, just last year that did this flow with better production, wordplay, personality, lyrics, subject matter, the whole thing? Because this song, no radio whatsoever, and I can't see it getting any. Right now, just huge streaming and respectable sales. The sign of people checking into it for a short time before throwing it out like a novelty, which I would say kind of sucks. I mean, this guy's been doing this sort of thing on YouTube for years now. I kind of respect that hustle. But except the song is terrible, and it's already inspiring a horde of bad ripoffs down the line. More on that in a bit, but to round out our top 10, we got Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran at #10. Not a lot to really say here. It's here because of streaming, YouTube, airplay longevity, and it won't be there for long. Now on to our losers and dropouts. We actually had a pretty crowded set this week. Of the dropouts, the big ones are I Don't Mind by Usher and Juicy J, ending a respectable run. Although, seriously, Usher, when are you dropping You Are? You put out Good Kiss Here as your leadoff single nearly a year ago. I want to hear the rest of the album at this point. Then you have Outside by Calvin Harris and Ellie Goulding, unfortunately leaving the charts. I did kind of like that song. Little Red Wagon, Miranda Lambert's Kesha ripoff also exiting. And Riptide by Vance Joy, a song that I've been aware of for a while, but for the life of me, I just cannot see the appeal. As for our losers, we actually got a pretty reasonably sized set this week, and not a good week for Rihanna, as American Oxygen loses all its momentum to 91, unsurprising, and 4-5 Seconds, her collaboration with Kanye and Paul McCartney, slips to 36. Beyond that, most of the losses, fairly predictable. I Really Like You by Carly Rae Jepsen falls to 75, guess all that virality is gone. Ain't Worth the Whiskey by Cole Swindle thankfully drops to 86. I Want You to Know by Zedd and Selena Gomez continues to unimpress at 46. And Nate Ruiz's solo effort, Nothing Without Love, falls to 89. Only really disappointed with that one, but I'm not exactly surprised about it either. As I said when I covered it last week, Queen was more than Freddie Mercury, and Nate Ruiz should know that by now. But oh dear God, we had a huge week with our gains here. Let's start with the ones that I've talked about before. DJ Snake continues slithering up the charts with his deep house-inspired collaboration with Luna George, You Know You Like It, going up to 26, and the far inferior Lean On with Major Lazer and Mia continuing its rise to 59. Then we we had our new arrivals from last week gaining some traction. Cheerleader by OMI going up pretty nicely to 63 because it's a solid lightweight summer song. Nasty by Bandit Gang Marco featuring Drode is going up to 65 because the trend of nu-crunk is taking off. Lovely. And Flex Ooh 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 by Rich Homie Quan is going up to 66 because America hates me. It almost makes me feel bad that I ripped into other gainers last week, like Fight Song by Rachel Platt and surging up to 50, or Like a Wrecking Ball by Eric Church bumping up to 78, or even Love You Like That by Kenan Smith going up to 77. I don't like any of the songs, but they're better than Rich Homie Quan, for God's sakes. But really, there were a fair few surprises this week. I get why Renegades by Ex-Ambassadors surged up to 69 to effectively fill Mumford & Sons' old slot, but why exactly did Be Real by Kid Ink and DJ Low rise to 68? I honestly thought that song was too downbeat and mediocre to gain any traction, especially going into the summer. But that's not the only song with Kid Ink to gain this week, because Worth It by Fifth Harmony went up to 21. Apparently the world is more receptive to third-rate talk dirty wannabes than I am. The last two songs, well, I shouldn't be surprised they rose this week, but I still am. The first is Honey I'm Good by Andy Grammer, which has been steadily climbing the charts at a reasonable rate and has now cracked the top 20 at number 17. And don't get me wrong, I do like that song, but I never expected a track this corny and white bread to do as well as I did. And as I said, I do like it. I guess a similar attitude informed by Sangria by Blake Shelton rose up to 44 besides the voice performance. Despite being intended as a drunken sex song, it's still very safe in that will probably play well to the same adult contemporary demographic that gave Honey I'm Good some presence on the charts. I'm not exactly disappointed it's there, but it is a little bit too safe for my taste. Granted, country had a fair few switch-ups this week beyond that, but before we get into that in detail, let's talk about our returning entries.
Let's go. Feeling myself. I'm 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 with some hood girls looking back at it, and a good girl in my tax bracket. Got a black card and let sex have it. These Chanel bags is a bad habit.
A song that's effectively on its last legs, and good riddance for it. It's a song about masturbation in every sense of the term, both in the lyrical text and subtext, which would be fine if it was actually paired with instrumentation that felt remotely sexy instead of a droning mid-range synth that never evolves behind the same progression, underweight percussion, and those pitch-shifted vocals that I can't stand. Sure, I get that the song isn't for me in any way, but is it really all that better when Nicki co-ops bad Vine means from Oak T Genesis? In other words, she does have some decent flows, but that's about it, and honestly, won't be displeased to see this gone likely in a week or two.
All of these games we play, I can't even keep them all straight. Do we mean what we say? We got lines crossed all over the place, yeah. I can't tell if I'm winning or losing. Somebody tell me, what are we doing? Nobody ever comes out on top. Tell me, are we ever gonna stop?
First of the many country tracks debuting or returning to the charts, and look, you know Luke Bryan, it kind of kills the vibe on your final spring break mixtape, but one of your more sour and stiff songs as your lead-off single, coupled with the obvious synthetic syncopation of the groove, and how the guitars just run through each other and just don't sound good, and the fact that Luke Bryan might have stood to not make a song about some girl playing games with him when it's clear that she's trying to get his attention and get a reaction from him since they're no longer together. I'm sorry, this track is just a mess and not a good one. Next.
Baby, something about that southern sky, sitting back behind that moon. It goes perfect with your eyes. Girl, tonight looks good on you. There's something about the way you're smiling, making them stars fall right on cue. I just gotta tell you, baby, tonight looks good on you.
Hey look, it's a Jason Aldean single that I actually don't mind being on the charts. This is a song that charted way back when the album was first released and then dropped out. And honestly, it's nothing that far outside Jason Aldean's wheelhouse, especially with the minor chord progressions and the rougher vibe, and the fact that Jason Aldean isn't very good playing that longing romantic. But where this song actually wins for me is in the instrumentation. The country rock guitar tone has a solid presence and actually progresses pretty well into a good solo. The backing rhythm section is a really great accent touch, and the bass line is actually pretty solid. There are better songs on Old Boots' New Dirt, that album. I still hold that Don't Change Gone is one of the best songs of 2014, bar none. It shows off a lot of dimension you don't often see for Jason Aldean, but you know what? I'll settle for this.
She wants to dance like ooh.
know, it's funny, I feel like I've already talked about this song 2 or 3 times already on Billboard Breakdown, and really nothing has all that changed. Still the best song off of American Beauty, American Psycho, re-entering the charts thanks to them finally dropping a video for it. And while I don't think the video is stellar, I have to admit, I would have loved a Pulp Fiction homage, and it's not like the titular actress Uma Thurman is doing much these days. She would have probably shown up and it would have been awesome. It's still kind of awesome that this song is here. Don't expect it to really be a hit in the long term given that the video is not great, but hey, you never know. I'd take this over Centuries any day. Well, okay, that was a bit better than I expected. Now on to our new arrivals, starting with number 98, Crushin' It by Brad Paisley.
By this time Friday night, I'll be done with my 3rd can of cold Bud Light, and I'll be crushing it. Yeah, I'll be crushing it.
You know, I'll admit that I was hard on Brad Paisley's last album, Moonshine in the Trunk, but there's a reason for that. The guy's one of the most creatively diverse songwriters in mainstream country, and seeing him make lightweight beach fodder feels like he's coasting, especially when he could be on the cusp of guiding mainstream country's search for a potent new sound. I like the guy, and I kind of expect him to do better. That being said, while Crushin' It is nowhere near the best song off that album, it's enjoyable enough for a thicker and bouncy melodic groove that sticks in your head, a great guitar solo, and Brad Paisley's got buckets of effortless charisma that I do like. If I do have an issue with it, it comes in the lyrics, namely that the writing is a lot clumsier than it should be. And it doesn't even touch on the unfortunate timing of the Bud Light reference. Putting aside the fact that it's an unbelievably terrible excuse for beer, even speaking as a beer snob, that stuff is shit. The recent ad campaign about how it removes no from your vocabulary, and the unsettling implications of advertising beer on the express purpose to get drunk, which really is pretty uncommon in alcohol advertising. Normally it's selling itself on some sort of lifestyle or some nonsense like that. Brad Paisley could afford to crush better cans of that junk. As it is, the song is fun enough, will probably do well enough in the summer, but Limes, You Shouldn't Have To, and Moonshine in the Trunk were all better summer songs. Just saying. Even though, if I'm being honest with myself, I still kind of really like it. Number 97, One Hell of an Amen by Brantley Gilbert.
It's a hell of a day, man.
And on the topic of country artists that I came down really hard upon, I'll admit that Brantley Gilbert's Just As I Am was actually kind of a passable record, albeit barely. Yes, Bottoms Up was atrocious, the worst hit song of 2014, and Small Town Throwdown with Thomas Rhett and Justin Moore was almost just as terrible. But there were quality songs there with tracks like That Was Us, the sort of laid-back bros anthem that actually kind of worked pretty damn well as a fond reminiscent of old Hellraising. It does work for me in that vein. In other words, it's the perfect summer anthem, and yet instead, the third single he releases is a by-the-numbers military glorification anthem that describes dying in battle as one hell of an amen. Or at least for the first verse it does, as the second's from the perspective of somebody fighting against cancer. And you know what? As much as I want to point at Jason Isbell's Dress Blues and say to Brantley Gilbert, do better, I can see the surface appeal of this sort of song. To go out to face your maker with everything you got, that's potent stuff, which is kind of handicapped by Brantley Gilbert still being one of the least impressive vocalists behind the microphone. Having recently listened to albums from Zac Brown, in the process of listening to Chris Stapleton's debut album, Brantley Gilbert's thin-sounding rasp, I'm sorry, doesn't measure up even by the standards of that. Tyler Farr does it better. Overall, I don't really dislike this song so much as I did last year, but it's not one that I'd ever seek out either. Honestly, probably would skip it. Number 94, Flicka de Wrist by Chedda to Connect.
Look at the flick of that wrist. 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 I woke up feeling like I was on the moon. I woke up feeling like I need 100 goats.
Okay, so you want to know one of the reasons why the success of acts like Rich Homie Quan really pisses me off? Like it or not, there's only one of him. And for the most part, outside of Billboard Breakdown, I can ignore Rich Homie Quan entirely. Unless, of course, wannabes start creeping into the pop charts. And that's exactly what happened with guys like Chedda to Connect. If you don't know who this guy is, well, I didn't either before this, but apparently he's affiliated with our recent top 10 arrival, T. Wayne. So that's where you want to go if you want to point blame. Now say what you will about T. Wayne, God knows I have, but at least he's got presence, and you can make out what he's saying on the song. Chedda Connect, however, decides to use the incomprehensibility of Rachomi Kwan and Young Thug with the staccato flow of Migos with a washed out synth line that only escalates into squealing irritation. As the actual content, it's so bare bones and devoid of interesting bars beyond the flick of the wrist that when combined with Nicki Minaj and Beyonce's Feelin' Myself seems like an apt enough metaphor for masturbation even if he didn't intend it. Either way, I don't know if I'd call this junk nu-crunk given its total lack of driving energy, but even if it's not, it still blows chunks. Next. Number 87, Stressed Out by 21 Pilots.
To the good old days when the mama sang us to sleep, but now we're stressed out. Wish we could turn back time to the good old days when the mama sang us to sleep, but now we're stressed out.
You know, the appearance of 21 Pilots really has been consoling me for a number of weeks on these charts. They've really blown me out of the water, but it's nice knowing they at least get some quality to support me here. Well, this is their third single off the upcoming album Blurry Face, which yes, I am covering, and after the gothic darkness of Fairly Local and the piano-driven pop rock exuberance of Tear in My Heart, Stressed Out goes for something a little bit more low-key and the typical feature of the sophomore major label record, the internal midlife crisis, looking back to their roots and yearning for a simpler time. And while there are elements I definitely like about the song, the lyricism, it's got a good flow, and I did like the sentiment that even greater success brings higher expectations and intensifies insecurities that might already be there, but the instrumentation just doesn't have the same impact, and that last bridge using the pitch-shifted voice doesn't exactly leave the song on a good note. It's probably the weakest of the 3 tracks that have been pushed to radio thus far. And while I'm still looking forward to Blurry Face, don't get me wrong, I'm hoping it's less in this vein and more in the vein of the earlier singles. Just saying. Number 82, Infinity by Mariah Carey. So alright, Mariah Carey has effectively reached the stage of her career that she's been so monumentally successful, so has such a massive fan base, that if she wanted to coast by on compilation releases of her past hits, with the occasional fresh new single packaged in with it, she could easily sustain her career. Hell, she went to Vegas, she could keep it up too. Hell, she's probably one of the few artists who can still do that, given that iTunes has effectively done a number on the whole concept of the greatest hits album. In any case, this is her fresh new single from that greatest hits album, and honestly, it's not one of her better songs. Yeah, the thicker strings and pianos, they are pretty, but the song's mix is so dense it's got an oddly breathless, airless vibe to it, and mixing Mariah's voice a little bit deeper into it does nobody any favors. On top of that, the writing of the song is awfully clumsy and mostly confines to Mariah to her mid to low range, which is a definite mistake. And then she's got lyrics like corny like Fritos. Come on, Mariah, you're better than that. And given that it's a breakup song, it feels like Mariah is really scraping to pull up any real drama and not really getting it. Yeah, I'm sorry, she's done better than this. It's not a bad song, but as I said, she's done better. And finally, number 71, Simple Man by Sawyer Fredericks. And finally, we get a song from my least favorite contestant on The Voice. This time covering a Leonard Skinner classic. And I'm sorry, no. Even with the organ and richer guitars, his voice is just too thin and weedy to hold up this song. Granted, of his covers, this is probably the most appropriate and probably his best because it lets him stay in his mid-range. But let's be fair here, Ronnie Van Zant had presence and an easy richness in his voice that Sawyer Fredericks just does not have. Plus, you know, the guitars were way better on Leonard Skinner's version, but it's not like you're gonna get those on The Voice, let's be honest here. As it is, I don't hate this song, but Fredericks has yet to be impressed me as a vocalist. His choice to pick on songs that demand raw, heavier, or even richer soul songs will likely backfire on him later on the show, so if he's not careful. Granted, he made it to the next round, so what the hell do I know? Guess that's what America wants. Okay, so honestly, that was a bit better than I expected. Not quite the plethora of crap that I was expecting, but we still get Flick of the Wrist by Chedda Connect easily walking away with the worst of the week. With a dishonorable mention going by a very narrow margin to Games by Bryan, as at least Nicki Minaj had a few good flows on Feeling Myself that could kinda save it, even if she did make the OT Gymnastics reference. As for the best, look, I hate giving it to Thurman by Fall Out Boy week after week, but it's still the clearest standout here. With the honorable mention, You know what? It's trickier, but I'm giving the edge to Brad Paisley for Crushin' over 21 Pilots, because it's not his fault that Bud Light decided to shoot himself in the face, and the latter song, I'm sorry, just kind of underwhelming. Let's hope for next week that's at least a little bit quieter, or maybe a little bit better, but somehow, I doubt that. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.